Welcome to this Rental Property Tracker Plus tutorial, which includes step-by-step directions for creating rental unit and tenant records and using Rental Income Tracker. First, create unit records for each of your units. Start by choosing Rental Unit Tracker from the Rental Property Tracker menu on the welcome screen. Then click the New button. A Rental Units window will open that lists your buildings and units. In this software, units are buildings or parts of buildings that are available for rent. For this example, we have 3 buildings, including 2 houses, one with only 1 unit and one with 6 units. We also have a condo with 2 units, so there are 2 multiple unit buildings and 9 units represented here. If you have one or more multiple unit buildings, click Add Building in the lower left corner of the rental unit screen. You will be asked for the name of the building. We'll start with the Beach Condo. Then you will be asked to pick a unit type. The choices are apartment, house, room, unit, or other. We'll call these units. Next, we'll add the other building with the multiple units and call it Ocean House. We'll call these apartments. To add a unit to a building, click the name of an existing building and then click Add Units. You will be asked if you want to add 1 or more than 1 units to the building. If your units are sequentially numbered, for example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you can use the more than 1 feature. If they are not sequential or have alpha designations, such as 1A, 2B, cottage, etc., then you must use the Just One button. First, we'll add the upstairs unit for the Beach Condo. After adding a new unit, you should fill in the address. And then specify a manager. After creating the first unit, you will be asked if there is only one manager for all the units. If you click Yes, the manager will be automatically added to subsequent new units. Next, you will be asked for the owner and if this is the only owner for all units. If you click Yes, the owner will then be added automatically to subsequent new units. Next, you will be asked for the kind of property, for example, apartment, building, condos, cabanas, etc. Next, we'll add the downstairs unit for the Beach Condo. This address may need to be edited. Note that the manager and the owner have been automatically filled in. Now let's add the 6 units to the Ocean House. If you choose the more than 1 feature, you will be asked for the number of the first and then the last unit in the building. You will next be asked for the street address, which will be appended with the apartment or room number and entered into the first line of the address field. Next, you will be asked for the city, state, and zip code, which will also be added to the address field on the new rental unit record. Then you will be asked for the kind of property. As you can see, the software has created 6 units for this building. If you have a single unit building, such as a house, you do not need to add a building and can just click Add Unit. As when you choose the Just One option, you will only be asked for the name of the new unit. We'll call it the Beach House. Then you will need to fill in the rest of the required information for the new rental unit record. Use the Find Unit button to quickly locate another unit. If you want to change the name of a unit for some reason, you can click the Unit Identification field on the unit record and choose Change this unit's name. Or you can click New, select the unit, and then click Modify Unit. We suggest you create all unit records first and then assign units to the tenant tracker records as you create them. However, it is possible to create tenants and assign them to units by clicking the Add Select Tenant button. Click the Notes tab to add notes about the unit or to add or select a manager. Click the Unit Cost tab to record financial information about the unit or building. You do not need to keep track of the unit cost for each unit of a multi-unit building. This section is optional. Click the Tax Info tab to add or select owners. Here you can add, modify, or delete manager or owner names. After creating a new owner or manager, you will see fields for a tax ID number, company name, address, phone, notes, etc. You can also click the Owner Details button in the Manager Owners menu window to get to this screen. The management fee and account information only apply to owners and their property management invoices. Notice that this list works a bit differently than other lists because you can choose multiple owners for a unit or building. Clicking a line selects or deselects it. If you pick more than one owner from the list, you will be asked for the percentage of ownership for each owner. After selecting one or more owners, you will be asked if the owners are the same for all units, just this unit, or just the units of this building. Next, create tenant records for each of your tenants. Start by choosing Tenant Tracker from the Rental Property Tracker menu. Then click the New button and follow the prompts. You will be asked for a first name, last name, rent amount, deposit amount, if this is a new or existing tenant, and if the deposit has been paid. If you click Yes, you will be reminded to fill in the Deposit Details section. Next, enter the lease end date. You can enter an actual date or MTM for month-to-month rentals. And then the late charge. If you charge a daily charge after the late date, enter the primary charge followed by a comma and then the daily charge. For example, if you charge $25 plus $5 per day after the late date, enter 25,5. Next, you will be asked if the rental period is weekly, fortnightly, which is every 2 weeks, multi-month, which is longer than 1 month, or monthly. Next, you will be asked for the due date, usually the first of the month, and then the late date. Click Add Select Unit and choose the unit for the tenant. Next, enter the moved-in date. The software uses the moved-in date to determine how many months of payments to look for in determining if rent is past due and what the balance due is. For existing tenants, you need to pick the first due date that you want to start entering rental payments into the software as the moved-in date. Most people don't want to go back very many months, so they just enter a fairly recent due date as the moved-in date, and then enter the actual date the tenant moved in into the Unit History field on the Rental Unit Tracker record. This View button will take you directly to the tenant's unit record. Here's where you access the Unit History. If all your tenants have the same due date, then you can enter a default moved-in date in the Tenant Tracker Prefs window. This View button will take you directly to the Tenant Tracker record for this unit's tenant. Click Prefs and then Tenant Tracker Prefs. For example, if you start using the software in March and you want to include historical data for January and February, then the default moved-in date should be January 1st. Then you can enter the actual moved-in dates on the individual tenant tracker records. If you have multiple tenants on one lease, you can list the other names in the Additional Lease Names field. If each tenant has their own separate lease, then click the Multiple Tenancy option on the Rental Unit Tracker record and add all the tenants from there. Other options in Tenant Tracker Preferences include whether you want to have rent or deposits posted first, if you want subsidy payments added to receipts, and if you want subsidy payments automatically added to a Rental Income Tracker Payments field on a certain date. You can also enable online payments so that you can accept credit card and debit cards for payments. This takes some setting up, but we can help you get a very affordable merchant account. For existing tenants, click the Deposit Details button and indicate if the deposit has been paid. The choices are unpaid, partially paid, and paid. Click the Choose button above the Deposit Paid field to record when the deposit was paid and then indicate how it was paid. You could also record when and how much of the deposit was returned to the tenant after moving out. For new tenants, the moved-in date does not need to be the same as the due date. We'll create another tenant named Jane Doe with a similar rent and deposit amount. Pick New Tenant, enter a lease end date, and a late charge. We'll then set her up as a monthly tenant and choose a due date and a late date. Then we'll click Add Select Unit and put her in the other condo. For this example, we'll move her in mid-month. Now let's add a Rental Income Tracker record for this new tenant. To do this, we'll choose Rental Income Tracker from the menu. Click New and choose the tenant we just added. If this is the first record for the tenant in Rental Income Tracker, you will be asked if this is a new tenant or just the first payment for the tenant. If you choose New Tenant, the deposit will be added along with any prorated rent to the Charges field. We're going to also add an extra month's rent to this record. Before clicking Create Receipt, we'll change the payment date to the 15th and make the prorated rent $375. When you click the Create Receipt button, you will be asked for the payment method. After entering this information, a rent receipt will be generated. The payment is added to the Payments field on both the Rental Income Tracker record and the Tenants record. You do not need to fill in the deposit details until after creating this first record for new tenants because most of the information will be automatically entered for you. You can use the arrow buttons or click the Go To button to switch to another tenant record. If your tenant receives a rent subsidy, click the Personal Info tab, then click the Rent Subsidy option and fill in the amount of the subsidy in the Rent Subsidy field. There are several other fields in the Personal Info section that you can use to keep track of various information such as phone numbers, tax ID numbers, employers, their job, their auto license, email address, etc. Recurring charges can be added to the rent each month by clicking Add Select Charge, then adding or selecting a charge and clicking Choose Charge. Use Create Charge to add a new charge. Other charges can be either a fixed amount, a variable amount, which means you will be asked for an amount when you choose the charge, or a metered amount. If you choose metered, you will need to enter the rate per unit. In this case, we'll enter 10 cents per kilowatt hour. The other recurring charges will be automatically added to the rental income tracker records for this tenant. If your tenant has a balance due or credit as of the moved-in date on their tenant tracker record, enter that amount in the balance due field. Remember to put a minus sign before any credit amount. This amount will be automatically added to the charges field on the first rental income tracker record created for this tenant. This field is automatically updated whenever Create Receipt is clicked in Rental Income Tracker with the current balance due. Now click Post New Rent to open Rental Income Tracker and create a new record for this tenant. If there is a metered charge, you will be asked for a meter reading for the charge. The first time, you will also be asked for the number of units to be billed for this rental period. For a new tenant, this number may be 0. Note the late charge was automatically added to the record by the software because this record was created after the late date and this is not a new tenant. You can modify or delete this charge if you wish. The starting date, ending date, and late date, as well as the current month's charges, will all be automatically filled in for you. Make sure they are what you are expecting them to be. You can edit the charges field or add any deposits, balances due, or other charges to the charges field by typing directly into the field or by clicking Add Charge and creating or choosing a charge. Next, click the Choose button above the Payment Date field and enter the date of the payment, unless it is correct. If the tenant paid in full, you just need to click the Create Receipt button, which transfers the payment to the Payments field in Tenant Tracker. Next, you will be asked for a method of payment. If the tenant is paying by credit card, you can use the online payment feature to process a credit transaction over the Internet. Here is where you can enter the credit card information or look up credit cards that have been stored for future retrieval. Click Process Transaction to validate the credit card payment. As you can see, all the information about the charges and payments for the current month are available on this receipt, which you can print out or not. Then click the New button and enter the next month's payments for either the same tenant or another tenant. Next, we'll enter the meter reading so the software can calculate the metered charge. Then we'll make sure payment date, the start and end dates, and charges are correct. If the tenant made a partial payment on that payment date, enter the amount of the payment in the Payment field and then click Create Receipt. Then choose the date of the second payment and enter the amount of the second payment and click Create Receipt. All partial payments for the same rental period for any one tenant should appear on one rental income tracker record. It is important to remember to click the Create Receipt button after adding any payment to Rental Income Tracker so that it is posted to the tenant's payment field and the balance due field is updated. Click Rent Roll to see a list of all your tenants and if they are late with their rent. The amount due is listed along with the number of days past the late date. You can also generate late notices and general tenant notices. It is also possible to generate leases and payment history reports. There's much more information about each component of the software available by clicking the Help button in that component or window. If you have any questions or comments about the software, feel free to contact us.